Okay. I think the best way to go about this process is using the layer system inside of ZBrush. So layers are kind of a pain because they really do not work very logically, or they're kind of unintuitive basically. So what I'm going to do is I have the male head open that I provided you. So we have the male, we have the head itself, we have the eyes, and then we have, I'm going to go down to my layers menu, and then we have this menu here. So if I hit this plus icon, that makes a new layer. And you'll see that right away it makes this untitled layer thing. And then it makes this record button. You see this record is like a little, I wish it turned red like an actual record button. But, so this is actually really important for you to notice, because what I'm going to do is I'm going to mess this up like right away. So I'm going to be mindful, and I'm going to try to name this a specific layer, right? So I'll hit the name button here, and we'll call it, like, I don't know, big forehead. Oh, that actually worked this time. But let's say for whatever reason, it's actually easy for this button to go off like this here, and then when this is off, you'll see that it just has an eyeball, right? So I think it's on, so I can do stuff like I can move this around. Let's grab the move tool. I will turn on symmetry. I'll hit X to turn on symmetry, and then I'll move this, and we'll do something like, I don't know. Okay, let's just go really overboard with. There we go. There's my layer, right? And then when I turn this on and off, you see how nothing happened? It's because the record button wasn't on. So it basically, this the movement that I did on this face, it only affected it on the basic level. So it's basically just part of the mesh now. So I need to undo all that here. And then symmetry's on, and then I'm going to make sure that this record button's on. So if it is off, just hit this gray circle, and then you'll see it will turn into like this giant gray circle there. And why did it turn black? This is interesting. Let's try this again. I basically step back to the beginning. Let's do this again. I'm gonna make a new layer. This is now on. I'm gonna move it around. So when you're setting this up, you're not restricted to just using the move tool. I could use the clay tools. I can start sculpting this however I need to sculpt it. Whatever helps you achieve the look that you're going for, that's really the more important thing here. And let's say I'm done. I'm going to turn this off. Let's hit turn off the record button. So now if I turn this off, and I can turn it back on, and then there's my layer, right? So the nice thing about using layers though is that, so if you see there's a numeric value of 1, so that's at the full value. I can also go to 0. That will also manually turn it off, and then I can go to -1, and I can push it the opposite direction, right? So when you're setting this up, just think of kind of the base number of shapes that you need, and don't think about it like, oh, I need to make like a negative version necessarily, because you can slide this value to the left, and then you get the negative value for that. I'll turn this back up to 1. I'm going to turn this off. And let's go ahead and make a new layer. Let's rename this. I'll call it tall forehead, big. Let's do tall forehead. But I'll make a new one. This new one is going to be a little bit bigger, as in I'm going to push it towards, say, what's I going to do with this? If I push this, let's make it like a round head. Right. So record's on. That's going to be my test. Always is going to, because it's so easy to turn this off by accident. I'm just going to make sure that it's always on. to make my life easier, I'm going to leave the eyes kind of in the middle. I'm not going to mess with the eyes at all, actually. I'm going to do like a super spherical head. Alright, so I'll turn this off. And now I can turn this on. I can go negative, and then there's the opposite of that here. But we'll leave it on for now. And then we'll make a new layer. And let's do like the square head. So I will just block everything out. So part of that blockhead, I think I'm going to flatten out the top of the head, and then maybe we'll pull this bottom of the jaw down here. And then I'll turn this off, and then I'm going to make this the square head. Turn that off, I'm going to turn this back on. This will be the round head. And then let's go ahead, let's make some more. And maybe this one will be big cheeks, right? So let's just take the cheeks out. Sometimes it's a little hard to do this at such a low resolution on the face, but you know, I think we can always work that out later. So if you notice, I'm going to do this on a very like isolated case. I'm trying to not do too much across the board, because I'll show you in a second why I'm doing it that way. But let's wonder why this keeps going to black. Okay, that's okay. It's weird. So I'll just make a few more here, and then we'll mix these together. And then I'll pull the chin in here. Okay. So my recommendation is, look at a caricature that you like, and then try to break down what are the distinguishing features of that caricature, and break it and have a layer per feature, right? So now I can just turn all these on. We could do some pretty weird combinations here. These can go very bizarre very quickly. You can break this as much as you want, right? So let's say that this is the head, or let's make this even weirder. Something like that. And we'll do like the small chin here. Okay. I don't want you to do a few more than just the 5 that I did, but just for the sake of demonstration, I'll just keep it to that. So now what I'll do is I'll go back to my subtool here. I'm going to duplicate this, because I want basically one master file where this head at the top is going to have all that information in it. So if it makes it easier, I'll just rename it and call this the master layer head. And then I'll go back down here, let's turn off the original head. And then I'm going to bake all this down. So if I hit bake all, it's going to get rid of all this information and it's going to give me this finalized mesh here. And now I'm free to sculpt on this however I need to sculpt on it. Maybe I'll just subdivide this right away. And I can do whatever I feel like I need to do. I don't really have a concept that I'm working from right now, but hopefully go ahead, pick one. I have some on the drive, but don't feel like you need to work from the drive. If you find something else that you want to do, go ahead and do that. And if I need to subdivide some more, then that'll give me some more room to work with. And real quick, so I'm going to switch over to a recording I did earlier. Where is it? So this is basically the same thing of me going through, but it should be a little bit more in depth of like what kind of features I decided to put in. And I think I did push this in a more extreme manner so that when I do start combining everything down, you can get some pretty bizarre results really quickly. So stuff like that. This is the best art I've ever done. Right here. This is it. And so I actually did this to start this other caricature. Yeah, so I'm using the same exact layer system here. And you could use this for whatever you want, really, if you want to explore your personal character this way too. Sometimes it's easier to play with a bunch of sliders than it is to just sculpt. And then after I get things to a certain kind of distorted feature set of characteristics, then I will go in and bake it down and start sculpting. This is a really long demo though, so I'm not going to go through all of it. It's both videos are about an hour each, but I do go over a bunch of different tools that I'll talk about in the next few classes as well. As like, what are the different ways we can create cloth and hair and stuff like that. And this is not loading, but is it? How is that? Pretty straightforward. Mm-hmm. All right, so let's give that a try, and I'll be around to answer questions and talk about homework.